You're all welcome to the First Influencers channel where we talk about the latest in the world of sports. Today, once again, we are opportune to have a fine gentleman in the house that is going to tell us more about the rally race in the Uganda. Uganda is in the East Africa, in Africa, on the African continent. He's going to introduce himself. So please, Frank, can you formally introduce yourself, please?
JD, I'm glad to be hosted in your show. Of course, my name is Frank Hayes Serugo. I'm the head of media and PR for the Federation of Motorsport Clubs of Uganda, which is the national motorsport body that runs motocross and also rallying. It's a great pleasure that I've been hosted on to the global network that is going to see us exchange ideas and, of course, get to hear what is all running down in the continent and much for the Pearl of Africa, Uganda. Well, I can smiley say or put on a broad smile when I speak about the sport I love most. And of course, that's none other than the motorsport. And way back my years of start of practice in journalism, I began it as a simpler sport of interest, but finally I had to end up having a DNA with the sport, and of course that has really carried me over years and years. I remember when I was beginning my journal practice. That's way back in 2000, end of 2005 to date. I started that way, and of course, as a journal who graduated by that time, I had many multitasking take ups I did, but of course, when time was after practice of 1 to 3 years, I decided to really specialize in reporting about motorsport. And that's how I began my journey into the sport. And away from the newsroom, I would always even gather people around me to tell them what happened in a certain rally at an up-country event. And of course, that gave me a niche. And one of my editors one point said, "Hey, you sound to be loving the sport. And why don't you go do it yourself? Do report it right from the cockpit and you give the people the real feel of the rally sport of it." I said, "Oh well, if you had so to say, I will be so much of a good person, a good writer, a good reporter when it comes to the field of motorsport." Then I decided my journey, and of course, I can tell you, those who are now listening in and watching, I began my career in rallying. That is way back in 2008. Actually, that was 2008 early. I started as a time marshal. I can tell you, the passion I had was too much that I would not even wait to sit in the rally car. But of course, I began my career with starting as a time marshal, running into the rains on the rainy day. You keep in the shelters, the simple makeshift shelters of umbrellas. You wait for the cars until the last car is gone, until when you get to see the sweeper in rally where there's a last car on the road that we call a stripper.
Okay.
Until when you get to see the sweeper, that's when you can fold up your umbrella and of course pull down the timing gadget and get to where the car to pick you by the stage and go to the main center. Well, that's how I began my rally career. But of course, it has been an entertaining thing to me. I can absolutely say, as I was looking into the sport to really give time, I had betted between soccer, rugby, and boxing. Much so, my ardent sport was the other preference to rally was boxing. But of course, boxing, I had one of the superstars that kept me at age with him. That is Kasim the Dream Woma. With by the time 2008, when he matched the IBF champion, I always had the ears on the ground, and I always loved boxing to the edge until like when he was almost getting out of phasing out of boxing arenas and avoidance by other champions in his category. That's why I said, hey, I need to have another mother in a sport that I would give it a lot of my time. And of course, that's how rally bumped in me. It's actually bumped in me at the time when I desired it most. And of course, at the time, I had a friend who was in rally. He was a big boy, big hearted. That is the late Riaz Kuji. Those who may have seen one of the Ugandan big boys that emerged on the racing car line was Riaz Kuji. Riaz came in way back in 2005. He literally got to be close with me when I was following up him on the continents going around our neighbors, Kenya, Tanzania. When we crossed over to the other continent nations, that is Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa. Of course, that's when he was actually picked by the eye and say, hey, I have a little boy who follows at the sport. He writes for the sport. And guess what? I was even writing for some local language here at some local vernacular paper where he used even to pick a few papers on the street and get somebody to interpret. Until when he called me at one time of his point of racing, he said, "Hey, I need to give you a feel of the car." And guess what? He tells me, "I either know you either get in there, you get to say it straight away from the man, you seeing what I do in the cockpit, or you wait it and see it as the rubber rub to the surface, and you tell it as you're seeing it." Well, he has was tickling me for the beginning of a career in navigation. That's way back in 2007 late. And as I was contemplating, should I get into the cockpit? Should I get into practicing real hands-on on the sport? I got a friend, I call him my teacher, and I still refer to him as my teacher. And that is Edison Mongereza. He has handled many of us navigators, many of the drivers who are just rookies who are beginning their careers in rally. They have always had a hand on by Edison Mongereza. I salute him for that. And he has always been my word, my tagline into the sport. Edison Mongereza currently is serving as one of the chief mechanics for our African Rally 2 Champion 2021, Yasin Nasser, the Moy sponsored driver. And of course, for him, he rested the career of racing and now he's serving as a mechanic back into the boiling of the sport. He told me one time, the day I carry you back to how he called me in, he actually told me, "Hey, I think the way I find your writings, you write as if you're in the cockpit. Could you have, by one time, have a chance to come over close to me? I teach you that we call it the shorthand of navigation. You get to learn, and one time you begin it to me." He gave me, actually, he never let me out of his hand. He preferably told me, after teaching you, I'll be the actual person to carry you onto the rally scene, onto the start line. I said, "Oh, what? Are you serious?" I thought like he was joking. I told him, "Hey, don't make a joke over me. You know how serious I love rally. If you really mean it over to me, then definitely tell me the date. Tell me the time when I can come and check over you." He tells me, "Hey, anytime you want." I said, "Hey, can we have it tomorrow?" That was actually in an evening of a day like Tuesday. Then I was asking him for the next day on Wednesday, tell him, "Where can I find you?" Well, he was humble and he was very honest to me. He told me, "Hey, you only need to, I will only need 1 or 2 hours of your time, and then I'll leave the rest to you as a homework." So I find him at a working garage around Kampala, the city of Uganda. He tells me, "Hey, can find me over here." I get him. He had one of, I call them one of the oldest cars that were racing then. That is a Toyota Levin, a two-wheel drive, which was having, it was a rear drive two-wheel car. That was his car then. He told me, "Now, before I let you see the interior or the inside of my car, I need to give the shorthand of note. That is a shorthand of note taking." He tells me, "Now, let me give you the practical, actually the theoretical bit of it." He carried me into a session of like 1 hour. He tells me the MR for the shorthand. Since you guys speak much English, you only need to make a shorthand of every word of abbreviate. So I told him, "Hey, I'm ready for you." He tells me, "Now, like when you want to mean a medium right, you put an MR. When you want to mean a max right, you put an R over with a dot up. Or if you mean it's a slow right or stop, you just say it's a slow right. It's a slow medium right. Depending on who the driver is, you grade your surface of the rally, depending on how fast your car is, how good your driver is." And so there I rolled off into a class of navigation. And so he gave me his time, enough of his time. Humbly, I can tell you, I grasped a lot on that single day. And I told him, "Hey, what next? When am I sitting in the rally car?" He absolutely tells me, "No, don't worry. You need to prove to me that what I've told you theoretically, you can put it into your mind, easily and quickly ingest it as into practical. So as you can grade the surface according to what you may have done into reconnaissance. That is when you go and do recce with your driver. He gives you what the readings are supposed to be called to him." So I did tell him, "Now, what next? Tell me the day and the time. Where do you want to do a practical bit of it?" He tells me, "No, my car is a little bit, it needs a little bit of fixing, but I'll leave it as a mechanic, but I'll get a normal car. We get to do a simple 1 or 5 kilometer drive through. Then I tell you those bit of hazards and those bit of runs and turns where I'll get to understand if you really picked a little bit of the theories." So simply my journey in navigation, rally navigation, rolled off at that time. I know I may have bored you, Lord, but of course, that's how much I love the sport. When you
Yes.
tell me to sing about rally, hey, I can tell you I can spend a whole day talking
Yes.
about motorsports and the whole thing of called motor rally. So that's how I know into the sport. And I had to play two things. As a journal, I had to look for ways of how I could juggle. If somebody called me to race on a race day, how would I do my stories to go beat up the headlines in the newspapers and find the ways of how I would not be jeopardizing my activity into the cockpit? So after he too actually from the note taking, he took me around and gave me those marks: the medium rides, the slow rides, the airpin left or the airpin right, the medium humps, the medium trenches. I learned a lot in a single 3 days that I almost became an expert who would only love to sing the noting. And guess what? When I was asked by friends in the home, hey, what is it that's saying is medium right? What is it you're now saying that is it's an airpin right? I said, hey, guys, sorry, I'm boring you a lot, but I'm into rally navigation and I'm learning it bit by bit. And I'm told I can only be good if I learn these things and doing just them fast. Because with the speed of the car, there will be no wait of time to breathe through into the knots, but you need to give it as accurate as is to be very much good onto the speeds and to be remaining on the racetrack. So I told me, okay, wish you a safe journey. So Edison, after 1 or 2, actually, we went with him for a series of two-wheel drive championships. Actually, I didn't finish a season, but we had a few runs with him in some rallies. And guess what? My first attempt there, I get the best co-driver, a number 1 position with the guy who took me in rallying. Hi. I can tell you, JD, I treasure that trophy and I still have it in my home. It's unfortunate I've not done this interview at my home. You would have been able to see, I know, actually, an assembly of my trophies that I've really achieved under the way in my
We,
execution of motor rally. But
we
I
will have
believe when you come touch base when you come touch base in Uganda, I'll
yeah.
spoil you and take you see the world will be able to see it practical and say, hey, we really saw this man speak the sport, and he indeed did it. Here is testimony. He has the trophies. I assembled them, and of course, I am priding in them because even my kids, after getting into having a family, my kids ask me, "Hey, Dad, what the hell? You have money trophies? Give us a few." And I say, "No, I would give you these trophies, but of course, they come with the privilege and the leverage. You don't just get to own a trophy. With rallying and sporting, it's all about how much you give in to achieve that goal." And so I told them, when you get to be doing the sport I do, then I'll always be at a way to see how much you score and how much you pick by to get yourself having a cabin of trophies as I'm having. So Edison will carry me on, and then the next thing he disposes me off to some other driver. He tells me, now, you see, I feel you should now go to active rallying, and I may not be running all the season. So he gave me one driver who was in a Mitsubishi Evo 2. That was the first four-wheel drive car I sat in. And our role there was then we began with route opening in some big rallies. And so that's how I raved off. The rest up to now is history. I can say what I cannot celebrate yet, what I've not celebrated yet on the podiums of rally is, of course, not having a national title yet, and all the 12 years I've stayed on the racing block. I still lack, I can say I still lack a national rally championship title. But I believe if I give myself a more 1 or 2 free seasons when I get back into the cockpit, I'm very sure that will be my next goal. Yes, then let me accept the JD with the
Yeah.
unit that's now watching. I
Yeah.
carry you now off with you now my rally career. That is now the line of my rally career. Then
Okay.
running to my office running. I'm privileged and happy that I serve the sport I love most. And of course, I've had a chance to rub shoulders with many ex-international rally drivers, big shots around the globe, big shots around the continent, which has
Yeah.
given me a privilege to be a communicator into the field of motorsport. And seriously, I've really gone ways, and the sport has really made me walk destinies and nations. And
Yeah.
As I was doing my TV, actually, I began my TV broadcast career as a media sports analyst and a producer and the presenter. That is way back in 2012. I did TV broadcast from 2012, and of course, I can say I now do active presentation up to 2020 before the pandemic swept over the globally. But since then, I've decided to go solo, to go as a consultant in broadcast. And I happen to be having a company, my personal private company, that is Kembaha Build and Media Consults. That they have specialties in constructional and build ups and real estate, and in media consultants and research and advertising. And under the same rounds of duties, I was privileged to be called in by the serving cabinet of the presidency that came in 2020, early in February, that enacted into a commission, that is the Media and PR Commission, into the local motorsport federation. That is sort of somebody who would give them a touch, who could give us, who would at least a little bit of furnish and put a little bit of some varnish onto the sport. And I can say Uganda is one of the few African countries that has an already fan base.
Yeah.
And I think we don't see anyone beating us on the African continent when it comes to the fan base.
Yes.
Away from the first three world countries, that is Argentina, Finland, I think, and and of course Turkey. There's no other country I think it beats up into the numbers, the spectator numbers that hold up to the rally on the rally day. This is like a baptism. Away from the war, say soccer, which has had a direct hand support from government. I think rally is the next game that it has. Actually, if not the biggest, it's biggest in numbers, but of course it's the next biggest for the sport in Uganda, where people are baptized, where people spend their money. You can imagine how crazy people go on rally days. They travel, they travel kilometers and distances away from their homes to go and watch an event. How long it takes them, it's none of their business. It's all the exciting moment. It's all them running out to support their own drivers. They feel, I'm in for Posiano Rakataka, I'm in for Yasinaja, Emma Kato. Those who might have seen the legendary drivers like Uganda ever produced. Emma Kato, talk about the late Charles Muhanji, who was a one-time African champion, that is in 1999. And we still gruesomely
hello, viewers. I think
mourn him as he passed on. We didn't have an opportunity to make ourselves through yet by having another champion in making. But we still believe with the new breed of drivers we have, we definitely have the game on us. We have a lot of talent that needs to be tapped in to be helped into through to the African Racing Continent Championship. And may whoever knows, with all a drought of many years, then since we last had the champion in African. Yep.
Yeah. Before you go further, I know I'm sure there's lots of questions that we still need to ask you, and there's some questions that that we need to be, because our viewers have been like, okay, we should start asking some of this question. Obviously, our viewers have been saying that you are so passionate about it because you've just been from the introduction. You just took up all the back introductory, all the stories over the time that you just kept on just giving to us. We can see the passion is there, and we're so much privileged, like I said, to have you on. But then, because of time, we still have some things that will still come up onto a few of the things that which you mentioned. So please just allow us to to be asking these questions, because they are very important. And yes, having said that, I want to say to our viewers that I'm sure most people, because we're especially here in England and in the Western world, the US, most of the people here, I hope I'm not, I stand to be corrected, never knew that there is a motor rally race on the African continent. So we are
Wow.
always, we are always after Formula One, which is well known here in all over Europe. So with things like this, with yourself coming in, with us having shows like this, conversation like this, it's an eye opener to most of us, especially some of us that are from African continent and Afro Americans. It's good for them to know that on the continent of Africa, even the rest of the world, that they should know that there are things like this. We have rally races on the African continent. So let's start. Let's just go straight to the questions. I'm sure you've touched on some of it. So, like I was going to ask you, which you've already said, that you tell us a bit background, which you've mentioned. But please, if you can make it brief now, because there are still lots of questions that we still want to ask you. Just a brief one. Just tell us a brief background on the motor rally race in Uganda. Just something brief, please.
Oh, thanks so much, Didi. Of course, about his point that mainly to to you. I can't say Africa has results. Africa has regional championships. Of course, we have the African World Championship, as I mentioned. And Uganda is one of the few nations that's had a champion in the late Somali. And previously, before even return to the democracy to the continent, that's in our neighborhood, Kenya.
Right, yeah. The signal is really bad. You are breaking. We can hardly hear what you're saying. Is it?
Am I clear there?
Yes, it's okay. Yes, it's okay now. Please, it's okay now.
Okay. As I was saying, that the continent as Africa has bled a number of drivers, and if you go onto the archives of rallying worldwide and seek into the database about Africa, we've produced great heroes, great champions like the late Sheikh Meta. He won the African actually the African round, which was then the WRC round, the Kenya Safari Rally. He won it over actually 5 times. When you go into Wikipedia, you will see those statistics. And Sheikh Meta, we blessed that he was one of our own who was in Uganda, and he was one of the drivers that shaped rallying into the continent. And I can tell you the current federation came into play. That is way back in 1999 and had its first Pearl of Africa rally. That is in 2000. And that is where we had a regional cross-border event that started from Uganda, going to Burundi, Rwanda, and then back to Uganda. That's how we began into back onto the African Championship competition and had the prestigious Pearl of Africa rally, which has been on the racing block for time to memorial up to now. Looking at the other side of the continent, Africa has really had a number of players into this sport. I can tell you, we are lucky to have had into this other list a decade ago. The FIA, the world body, picked up a few young stars under its parent star. And now I can proud that we had one of our best drivers on the continent. That is Conrad Rottenberg. He was once under Citroen, and he was in the breed times of the Otsana, the currently world championship chaser. That's the Otsana, who is currently a world champion. And Uganda also had a chance that one of the the super co-drivers, Moses Motevu, co-drove Rottenberg. He also went ahead and co-drove one of the youngsters, that is Peter Hossi, in a Mitsubishi promotion. That was a Pileri youngster promotion. That is way back 10 years back. Then he went ahead and tried out with the junior in Tanzania. There was Ahmed Jewel, one of the youngsters in Tanzania. And so Africa motorsport is a baptism, I can say. It's a baptism. And it's unfortunate. I cried deeply with a hurting heart that we are not going to be able to witness the first ever return having an F1 round in South Africa, as it was anticipated that 2023 had been earmarked for having a world F1 championship round. But unfortunately, it seemed like the FIA and Formula One wanted an assurance for the South African government that they didn't come through as on the agreed time. So unfortunately, we are not going to have that round in the that is Chapali. That was a racing arena that had been gazetted for 2023. And so Belgium gets a chance to be reinstalled again for an extension of another year on their F1 championship. But we pray 2024, we shall have Africa rule again as it was in the Safari Rally. Have a chance to have a host of an F1 round championship in South Africa. Talking sweet melodies about the Safari Rally. I can say, JD, you need to find time, and I think for the WRC Safari Rally, that's next year. That is around June. You need to prepare yourself and get to see how boys really make it. I know it's a really a very big spending budget when it comes to which kind of cars to have exactly race into the WRC Safari Round. But of course, African nations have asked the CAMS, that is the African body that runs motorsport, to really find out of how they can categorically classify our homologated FIA homologated Group N cars, those who can afford, and then talk about the Rally 2 cars. And we are lucky that Kenya is a few of the African nations is having youngsters, 4 youngsters in the WRC youngster promotion, and we hope the same extension numbers will go even to other nations who will have competed. And of course, South Africa successfully held the final grande finale for the African Star, and of course we had stars outlined, 8 of them outlined, and 5 are going to be participating in the next year's edition of the African Rally Championship from the WRC Pirelli promotion. And that alone said, the rally growth is actually, the curves for rally are growing every time. Permit me, as a person of information, inform the public that away from the budgets, I don't know how much the funds in Europe spend, but when we get to be blessed by one of any single rally round on the African continent, I can tell you millions and millions of dollars are fetched into the economy. And that alone signifies of how important the sport is to the continent, and how it signifies, and how it much signifies into the economies of the host countries. And I can give you a close example of a national rally in Uganda. Say
Frank,
we are running in.
Frank, we're still coming to all that. That's why I said let's be taking them one by one. I don't want them, everything tied up like this. I know that it's so obvious that you're so passionate about this. So and like I said, there are questions, that we're going to be taking, and you're going to be giving us all this information. We don't want it, lumped up. So let's just be taking them one by one, so that people can really get hold of the question and the answer, so they'll be able to be like, but with this, they may not probably be able to filter all those information and just be able to digest them.
So, I beg you forward your questions. I beg you forward your questions ahead. No problem.
So that's fine. Thanks for that. So the race, obviously, because is it usually a local race in Uganda, or do you have neighboring countries coming in? Just briefly, because like I said, we have so much questions we want to ask you. So it's just give us something brief, please. Thank you.
Oh yeah, the races, some are regional, some are local organized events. So let me take the magnitude of the regional. Regional means contenders for the African title go into the region. They go to the central, they go to the southern and the northern bit of the African continent. That's when they count down to the African Championship. Say in the south, so we have Zambia, we have South Africa, and then in the central we have Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, and then in the far north we have actually in the far west we have Ivory Coast, and away from Ivory, the cut across globally, for the continent, is that's when you go actually into the rules of the sport. To be an African champion, you need to go at least drive one single rally from each region. And if you're lucky and get to score points that keep you massively above any other, then you just count yourself next champion, who awaits to be crowned in Paris, that's in France, at the headquarters of FIA. On the local bit of it, it's actually actually it counts to the national championship. That is, we say, and we call them ASNs. That is the Association of National Sporting Nations. That's where countries have their different calendars, depending. But of course, they ask you, the FIA asks you before you draft your national calendar, you need to look into the regional championship because it supersedes the national calendar. So every nation, every African country, if they are to be part of the regional championship, they do their draft and make their calendars as in per the FIA regional championships. And if they need any other person, any of their drivers, their local drivers from different nations, to participate in other regional championship, then it's upon a nation to draft a favorable championship round that it will even favor those who think will go outside the country to participate. And that's how it's done. And that's how simply it's done mathematically to have a fair-way competition and a health competition regional-wise.
Thank you for that. Thank you for for what you just explained, because that's very educative and so informative too. So from what I've been able to gather, if I understand what you just said now, so there is regional, which encompasses all the African continent. From so I was going to ask you that, so West Africa doesn't have a representation, but you now said Ivory Coast comes from that.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. So all the countries, all the continents have representation. Thanks for clarifying that. So that's, as what you just explained now, has touched on another question which I was going to ask before, but you've explained that, because I was going to ask how many countries partake in the race, but you've answered that already. So now, how many type of, I think you've answered how many types of races are there on the that takes place in Uganda? Is it just the regional and the national?
Oh yeah, Uganda, under the guidance of FIA, we've even gone ahead to adopt into away from the mainstream motor rallying. There has been an adoption of other class upgrading levels of racing. Like for beginners who are just enrolling for motorsport or rallying, we have what we call autocross. Autocross is a maximum of a 6-kilometer drive where new drivers are tested and they are given a chance to try racing. And from such races, we have over 10 of them in the year in an annual calendar, whereby the best overall are classified into what we call Club Rallyman Championship, which also have scoring events in an annual calendar organization. And so for Uganda, we have a bit of autocross, we have enduro, that covers the other bit of motorcycling, where we have endurance races by riders. So before even they get into engaging, regardless of your age and time, you can have a chance to begin with enduro racing, that is for motocross side, and you get to get yourself, by the time you decide to go for mainstream motocross, you already really tested or what it also calls for racing. And from the classifications of the autocross runners, you go into elevation. From your beginners, that's the autocross is for beginners. So you elevate yourself into the Club Rallyman Championship, and the next series of a season you're racing under the Club Rallyman Championship. You're able, with a high score, there are specific points you score above that you classified into the mainstream rally. That you would have scored per level, so as to qualify you to the mainstream running. And that's how we've tried. We've also adopted into the badger racing, then drifting, which is yet to grow. Drifting, these are boys who are crazy for the streets, and we've put up regulations that, hey, before you make the streets very uncomfortable for the other public users, we've gazetted your events where you can pull it off and show us that you're good and doing all the slapping and the driving of your car on the street racing. But those days are gazetted.
Oh, okay. So I'm sorry about this. I think
we always ask for we call them speed lift permits, where we have a chance for on the main. We always have a chance to gazette. We always have a chance to gazette them a chance to race on those days to drift, and we give them hours of racing, hours of drifting. Whoever does it better excellently, they are awarded and given the awards. And so that is one way we activate them into racing. That hey, don't tear up
Yeah.
people on the roads. Observe the rules on the public road usage, but do them gazetely into the marked event that we can see you race and get to see you go competing. And that's how
Yeah.
we do it in Uganda. The other regions are also adopting in a few as we do. And
Okay.
it's upon them to see how the calendar runs smoothly according to their timetable and the time alignment they have for a specific racing calendar.
Thank you for that. Thanks for clarifying that, how it's been, how other races, which other races you have on in Uganda. So we all know that things like this, races like this, events like this, competitions like this, definitely needs sponsorship. So
Yeah.
briefly, like I said, there are lots of things that we want to ask you. Will really appreciate very brief response. That how do these races, that all those races, that all this competition, how do you get sponsorship?
Uh, it's really something that is been what that is actually still challenging to Uganda as a nation.
Okay.
Previously, 2 decades back or 10 years back, some few drivers were lucky to have sponsors, and these were companies of friends, companies of directors who are friends, companies who have workers who are loving the sport, that always pitch for budgets that come their way to help into sponsoring our drivers. But it's still, I can say specifically as Uganda, is sponsorship is still a challenge. You can't imagine where in Europe where you see either gas stations or oil companies coming on board to sponsor respective teams or respective drivers. Unfortunately, in Africa, the economy is still a little bit biting. That these would have been potential big sponsors in the sport are still not giving the much they're supposed to give, because I can give you a simple numeric calculation that if I was working for an oil company, there was no way absolutely I would miss out to sponsor a rally driver, because on a simpler mathematics, a rally driver may not have less than 3 cars to use on a rally day. That is the service car, the rally car, talk about even the recce car on a simpler calculation. So if
Okay.
it was consumption of the product, like say from an oil company, that would be a direct client, a direct clientele building. But unfortunately, the budgets have not come through. I can say we leveragely having a small drop up from these companies sponsoring the federation, and many of them we are trying to build up and brand the sport that they, if they can robustically come out and sponsor us a whole season, then we can see how we can play around with that with our drivers.
Okay.
Simply because not everyone is privileged to have a sponsor. A few
Yeah.
individuals, as I said, friends, like I can be a friend to JD. He says, no, I have my company here. It can leverage around your brand and give you
Okay.
sponsorship on a certain amount of money per rally. And that's how it's happening. It's head
Okay.
picking, not a
Okay.
collective sponsorship as we see on the world globe, where we have companies roll out drivers as their own drivers. We still have individual privateer racing carrying us over time. For the last more years, we've been racing, even over 10 years of racing that seen many people pick from the pockets. So that's why we always absolutely uh, uh, salute our drivers. They fetch or they get to dream to race from their pockets. They
Wow.
don't have the chances like the outside people who are racing, where they are
Wow.
given the cars to break. Here, if you say you're breaking a car, you're actually breaking your pocket. It's how much it fetches from your pocket that gives you the leverage to see how much you can really go chasing. And a few airline drivers who have had a chance to have businesses raised with their career and brand with the rally, they have leveraged into buying into some more modest cars. And I'm glad to say we're having the proto version that is the proto version that is wanting to ship our country rise. And sponsorship, men are coming. Like now, we have Shell having a few free drivers into their team, but this is not something you can drum about over time globally to say that they have enough budget for these drivers. Still,
Okay.
they go out to fetch out for more co-sponsors to see them through rallies.
Thank you for that. So from what you just explained now, what I understand is that most time sponsorship are so or is still a challenge in Uganda, that
Yes.
we don't have sponsors, you know, sponsoring events like this. Well, I'm
Oh, yeah.
hoping, I want to believe that some of our viewers, by the time, or maybe when they stumble on this, or, on this video, on this conversation we're having now, that people
Yeah.
can, buy into this, because I see a very big picture, because it's a big thing over here in England, motor race, F1, it's a big thing here. Thanks for answering that. So our next question is, how do you, as a driver, as an analyst and as a driver yourself, how expensive are these racing cars? How expensive can it be? Please, just brief thing. Like I said, uh,
Wow. Why
time
I'm putting a grin on my, you know what? Why I'm putting a grin on my face?
yeah,
Racing has become graded into how much you can afford, and they're damn expensive. Thanks for the national, actually, our Ugandan government that accepted to exempt these cars. They don't pay taxes, but still,
yeah,
if you have one of the big, actually one of the good cars, a good car starts from 70,000 US dollars.
wow,
So that is if you can afford. And of course, among us, like the 20 or 30 entries, I can say 15 can afford a $50,000 paycheck to a car. But there are even more decent cars which fetch more than that, over 100,000. We recently had one of an African champion, that is Manville Valdian. I can tell you he raced in a car which was 350,000 Skoda, 350,000 US dollars. And he, of course, with such an advantage, he leveraged over that and went ahead and won the African Champions 3 years back to back. That's way back from 2017 to 2019, unbeaten.
mm,
And so,
mm,
summing up on the question, how much these cars, they are damn expensive. And if we had chances to have private, actually companies, manufacturing companies like, say, Toyota, to say they pick up for the best drivers to sponsor, then that would be a fair way for racing in Uganda. But unfortunately, we still have a big percentage of us racing by our pockets. Until when we have such companies coming our way, we're still racing on our budget,
mm.
personal expenditures.
Thank you very much for this. It's I don't, it's just playing on my mind that when you say, cars like, racing cars like that. Yes, I know racing cars are expensive. Definitely, it's an elite sport. If at least from
Oh, yes.
here, from what I can see here, it's an elite sport. And for people, for drivers, and people not having sponsors, it's just baffling. And I just hope, like I said, that people that have paved way over the time, that
Oh, yeah.
sponsor companies will be able to, will start realizing that, wait a minute, there is so much future in this, and they will come to the aid of the sport itself, just to help people when it comes to getting all this expensive cars. Definitely, we know that without the cars, there's no race. So that we know that we can't race with our feet. It has to be with a car. Thanks for
Actually, to give you a highlight on that very specific point, uh, we actually had our car, myself and my driver, sponsored by Rock Boom. We had our car burnt to ash in 2018. And I
okay.
can tell you, since logistically we've not been affording the car yet back on the road, we've been out of the cockpit for the last 4 years now. That is how it shows you the magnitude of desire. We would have loved to be back into the cockpit, but hey, we've not
Yeah,
gotten up the money yet to get us racing
yeah,
back again. Because the car we were looking at, bare minimum, we needed a car costing around 70,000 US dollars. And 70,000 US dollars in conversion of Uganda shilling, that's around, with the current rate, that's around 250 Ugandan, 250 million Ugandan shillings. And of course, our father who provided us car told us, no, look, uh, money rally is a sport of excitement. It's not a paid professional that you guys are yet earning by it. We only need to leverage on the few resources we have. When we have the money, you go back racing. And unfortunately, when we had the chance to have a fundraising, we didn't even have a quarter of what we need to have into the pockets of our running budget, but we still move around and see if we have sponsors willing to give a hand and extend a hand to us. Maybe I'll be able to pronounce it before your live stream. Like, hey,
Yeah,
back guys, I'm back, and I'll be able to share over the lovely
yeah,
moments when I'm back in the cockpit.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for clearing that. It's just like I said, it's very, how do I put it now? I can't imagine, staying away for 4 years as a driver in a
Oh yeah,
race that that you're so passionate about. But like I said, I'm hoping that people will stumble on this and they will listen to all this that all these challenges, which brings me to the next question that I was going to ask
yeah.
you. That what are some of the challenges that that you encountered in competitions like this? One that you mentioned, being unable to get replacement cars. So what are, apart from that, what are the other challenges that that you faced with in competitions like this?
I can say, as a racer or as an analyst of the sport, I can say the biggest challenge is logistics. And of course, rally is won by far away three main things. When you do have the logistics, that's a budget. You prepare, and of course, when you put your car properly well, the next thing is the mind. Your mind as the cruise. The moment all those four things are fixed, the chances of stepping on the podium, I can say absolutely, they become 100% with experience coming along. So
Mhm.
that is one of the biggest challenge. That's logistics, and the other biggest challenge is Africa. We've not had proper car preparers who always have a cost on expertise, experts who come from the production cars, that is from the production industries of, depending on which make of car you're having, you need to find out expertise that is
Yeah.
from either Europe or even to the best elite experts that you can afford. That comes with a budget, that comes with a cost of budget. And had we had assemblies, or say, if the continent had assemblies like South Africa is trying to do, to have assemble a continental car, I can say probably to look a little bit more cheaper, but still expensive, because such production of such high-end cars comes with a cost. And those are the few mainstream challenges that come along with racing in Uganda and specifically in Africa. It's all about logistics. The rest is time. Some people, of course, when you have a car, of course, when you find you have no burdens of looking for money to race, then probably you can't say you don't have the time to race. It only needs you to already plan your days better and get racing. But when logistics comes as priority for you to look for the money before racing, then that's another hurdle. That is a wild good chasing in terms of racing.
Hmm. Thank you for that once again. So you reckon that assembly points being in South Africa will help to ease all those challenges that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Uh, we pray, actually, we pray in South Africa is also by FIA. It's accorded the homologation that these cars are given homologation. And the moment they're given homologation, that signifies them to be scoring on respective regional championships. So
okay.
it would be a waste of resources if you went and bought a car which does not score to your championship racing events. So
Okay.
definitely, it would be a good idea if FIA stood out of the way and actually propelled South Africa to a few outlines, and they're given the homologation of their cars, because I understand they are having a Toyota franchise in South Africa, which is already outed a car which is called African Rally Car, and the branding of a Toyota Starlet. But we
Okay.
pray that thing extensively got the hand thump up from the world body, and much more stakeholders coming on board to help in build of an African car, probably, as we have WRC cars racing in Europe and on the other world of racing.
That's brilliant. That's very good. I'm hoping that all those things will come into play like you mentioned. And the next question that comes to mind is how is it the FIA, or do you have a local body? Because over here, not just over here in England, all around the world, there is a problem of climate change. And what are the changes that's, I don't know if it's FIA, like I said, or do you have a local body? What are the changes that's been introduced or that are being put in place to reduce emission? I don't know if because of course you are racing fumes all over the place. So what are the changes that are in place to reduce emission during all
to the
this race?
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can say we actually we've not had a level to be able to purchase the cars that are electronic. It's now their first year. Actually they did a debut this year on the WRC calendar, and we are seeing a few upgrades coming in. Some others are saying they need to use nitrogen. Like one car which was lastly showcased in Belgium, where you saw Toyota doing a test of their car in Belgium, and of course all the world is globally informed that we need to conserve the environment. And these are the programs. We have a holistic department that handles the environment in our rallies. So we
Yeah.
actually avoid spills of oils into the grass, into the
Yeah.
environment. The
Yeah.
emissions, your cars have to be well checked before even racing. That
Yes.
is still on our local consumption. And
Okay.
we actually carrying the same message, same way as it's done in Europe. But of course, the budgets are differing.
Yeah.
Others are implementing it direct. Others, we are still doing it practically and theoretically to make people adoptive. By the time we have these electronic cars trickle down to Africa, then probably we would have been so ready to set to be adoptive. But of course, this is a timing situation that comes with logistical handlerage.
Okay.
If you have not afforded of recent one of the simplest cars with few emissions, then probably it will be a dreaming. It will be day and light, saying we have an electrical car racing on the African Championship.
Yeah.
Yet, when we have not put utility to the other past editions of cars that have been racing on the world globe. But of course, we are much environment sensitive, and thanks to the CAMS, that is the African body, and FIA, that we've several times carried in the environment uh, education, sensitization is carried over. That is avoiding fumes, carbon dioxide into the greens, and
Yeah.
racing green. Actually, the campaign we always have at our rallies, race green,
Yeah.
conserve the environment. That has
Yeah.
been an overhead of us, and every driver is aware. You always have to have a working mat into your service crew, and that is a requirement. And none of that, even at the fueling zone, you now have to have a mat where you need to those uh, fireproof mats that can help to avoid that emissions and burning. We've been
Yeah.
always adopted to that. But of course, we don't have the money yet to race into electronic cars, but we hope if that is
Yeah.
the call for more global calling into
Yeah.
racing, then probably the budgets have to be a little bit, the figures have to be twisted a little bit on the costing of those cars. Then it can be an affordability to everyone who desires racing.
That's brilliant. Thanks for clearing that because, like you said, it's a very big thing here about the emission, and they've been able to the Formula One, they've been able to put lots of checks in place just to greatly reduce and I was reading during this research I was doing for this interview that Formula One here are going to go, they're going to go into electronics cars, maybe in not too far future. So thanks for saying for clarifying that it's something that is in place. There is a body that is in place, checkmating and calling attention to pollution and climate change. Thanks for that. The next question is, I think you've touched on most, this explanation you just gave now. You've touched on two questions like that I was going to ask you, so I'm going to leave those ones. So the next question is, the car, it's the car race you've been talking about. Do you are that bike race too, or is it just basically just car race that is being held in in Uganda? Briefly, please.
I beg your pardon. You said the car racing?
I was asking, the question was, is it bike race and car race rallies that are being held in Uganda, or is it just car race, rally, purely car race, or is it basically the two?
Okay, let me take that question straight away. Let me hold the cow by the horns. Uh, Actually, you permit me in the next like 6 minutes, I make a sum up because I'm having dropping calls that I'm dropping over time. And of course, as I told you, I didn't do the interview at your convenience time as earlier proposed it, but I had
Yeah,
to really find a way because we had
yeah,
planned this long way to do it.
yes, yes, yes.
Uh, Uganda is privileged to have two very advanced sports that is
Okay,
handling under our local motorsport federation of
okay,
clubs of Uganda. That is, we do rallying, co against the other mainstream other activity, that is motocross. And I've really expounded a lot on rallying, and it would be a disservice if I never went saying about motocross. I
yeah,
can tell you, 2 decades ago, we had a little number of racers on the racing start line, that is motocross.
okay,
And Uganda's history began way back with grass track racing that had closed out arenas, that is football pitches, where people could organize a few bikes and get themselves onto racing on the grass tracks. But as the adoption of new sporting encroached into and enriched into the sport, the adoption of motocross came out underway. And it has been now 3 decades, years back, that we've had motocross practiced in Uganda. And indeed, we can say we're chasing up the powerhouses in Africa in regard to the sport motocross. And 20 years back, I can say we had a few riders. And as currently speaking, we have a breed of young talent and outgrowing talent, over 150 riders. That to me is a signal that we have parents who have not really given up on themselves, but they're much, much, much willing to see themselves racing. This alone gives us a ring into our heads that we need only to improve rules and sporting lines to be so clear that our coming generation of racers that we get our current high scoring raiders on the continent. And as we've seen, actually we began the talent development way back, the young talent tapping way back from 2012. That's when we had our lining experience. When we hosted the African Motocross of Nations Championship, we had a chance, we won it, and I can say with the hosts winning it that year, I can brag that it was like other few nations never fielded the number of riders we had that year. Unfortunately, by numbers and score, we had that chance. But of course, since then, I can say we've droughtly not had a chance to win again this the African top accolade, and South Africa pulled up back again to be the powerhouse on racing, motocross racing on the continent. I can testify that I've really done. I won this back to back way back from way 2023 up to now. Sorry, 2013 up to now. And recently, the last week, we had one of a long-awaited African Nations Motocross Championship, where the Uganda emerged third overall, and of course, powerhouse South Africa emerged victor, beating their next nemesis race track nemesis, that is Zambia, by just a point. They had 654, as in Zambia only lost it by a point when they had 653. It shows how the magnitude of the racing was, and of course it was an 8 nations tendency, where other countries also participated, like Botswana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, talk about Tanzania, and then DRC Congo, with a number of a few up to mention. This has improved, and time it's improving. And I can say we look forward turning tables around. We previously had the third place finish. We did fourth in Botswana 2017. Then Zambia, we came in third, that is in 2018. And
okay,
then same way, 2019, we came in third again. So it's coming chronicle that we are getting the third position overall over
yeah,
time. But we pray by chance next year, 2023, we shall have a chance to emerge one of the top, inside the top two boys in the motocross, and get ourselves onto the pulpit as celebrant number one. That's what I can submintly say to
yeah,
you, JD, and the audience that have been honestly listening to us. We are
yeah,
very
yeah,
optimistic and positive that
yeah,
with the way and the trends we are seeing, and with the trends and the love and the cherishing the parents have put up online for their kids to get resting, I can say it's amazingly promising a sport to be watching in the next coming years, and we are going to have champions come emerge on the African continent.
I want to say this was a very informative discussion. It's really loaded. Thanks for this. Thanks for all the information you've given us, for the insight analysis that you've given us on this occasion. Uh,
Glad.
Unfortunately, time has really gone, and we've been like, there are so many things, and I'm sure that we're going to have to bring you back once again, to answer
Glad.
this questions. We want to say thank you for honoring us on this channel, on this blog, for answering all our questions, for letting us know what Africa has to offer the world. Thanks for all this insightful explanations that you've given us. We really appreciate this. We want to say thank you to all our viewers too, and we, like I said, we'll definitely invite you once again, just to finish up most of the
Permit me,
questions.
JD,
Yeah.
permit me to sign out in just a minute.
Yeah.
I would like to say thank you once again for the gesture, and of course the world watching. We are just glad and honored. We just want to wait your days to come down and see the passion and
Yes.
the baptism of the sport we have in the country, and
Yeah.
more so the continent. Many
Yeah.
people cross borders and borders for the sport, and not only motor rallying, but of course motocross also too. But of course, in the same way, we actually urge our friends globally that if you find your way, a leverage, these countries in Africa have a lot that you can explore when it comes to business. I can say, as a tourism sensitive person, I can say Uganda is one of the pearls, or actually, it's the pearl of Africa where you can have business and explore the opportunities of having a chance to even help and sponsor these young kids, this racing young talent that you can explore into business sell and get yourself doing that. And of course, I can say from the business perspective, those who may find me away from racing, you can go to my Twitter handles. That's FKHC. And then, of course, my Instagram, it's Frank Kahesi. And of course, the same thing in my LinkedIn. You can also look for Frank Kahesi. You'll be able to be sharing business, be a partner. And I know now your eyes are now close to the person you've been seeing on the internet. I can say we can have genuine business. We can have different partnership regarding the business to grow. And let's see the sport grow. And I look forward for that. For God and my country, I salute you all and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much once again. Thank you for sharing that with us again. And I'm sure most of viewers will go to your handle that you've mentioned. They need to follow this man because he's passionate. There are lots of things that he can link people up with. Like I said, thank you once again. Until next time when we come your way again, please, if you've not started following us, I want to implore you to follow us too, First Influencers channel, where we bring you all the latest in the world of sports. From us, from this hand, it's bye-bye till next time. Bye. Thank you.